All right. So if you want, I can get started on this.
Yes, please.
Okay. So in my capacity right now, I'll be speaking as the chairman for the Guam Building Code Council. So the Guam Building Code Council was formed a few years back because of the transition from the building codes, from the Uniform Building Code to the International Building Code. So what happened was that there was several codes in the United States, and they all had different things that they were doing. So they decided as states and territories to combine everything in one international building code, and that's what we followed. So because of the code change and our laws were references that had to change, and let me just give you a little brief history. There was a Guam building energy code back in that was implemented around year 2000, uh, based on a study by the U.S. Department of Energy for Guam and American Samoa. And it was enforced for roughly about 10 years by DPW until 2009 when the ICC, or the International Code Conference, came in and the codes came into effect. Then in 2009, there was a model tropical energy code that was again funded for Guam, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and the sea, which unfortunately was never implemented. So some laws were passed to, there was a public law 30-199 that mandated the Guam Building Code Council be created and an energy code for Guam adopted. So what we did, the code was, the council was formed. I wasn't initially on the council, but then there was two key members that were really the driving force behind this, which is Brent Weesey, who was the previous chair, and Mr. Bill Miller, who is a mechanical and fire protection engineer. So they modified this 2009 Model Tropical Energy Code, and then came up with the what is now the adopted Guam Tropical Energy Code, which became effective this year, 1/23/23. It was, the public law actually passed 2 years ago, and it gave consumers and engineers and a chance to let things settle down, and then finally adopt it 2 years later, or enforce it after 2 years later after adopting it. Okay. The purpose of the code is to provide minimum design requirements to achieve energy efficient buildings constructed in Guam. We all know that we have some big power demands here on the island, particularly because of our cooling requirements. It's so hot on Guam, and the less energy we use, or the more energy we save, the less demands on the government to keep improving and expanding and building new infrastructure to support the energy usage. So it's a wise thing to do. If you save energy, your power bills go down. Your water bills could potentially go down. So that's the whole premise of it, right? It's supposed to uh, work so that it'll be a benefit to the people of Guam, and also help our government and our taxpayers, so we don't have to fork out so much. So uh, let, let me talk about um, what it impacts and who it impacts. Um, so first I'll speak about who, or the who's not impacted by this, or what's not impacted by this. So registered historical buildings are not impacted by it, and these are stuff on the National Registry. So we got some old structures out there, 50 years old, that have a historical significance. They aren't affected by it. Temporary structures are not affected by it. Temporary structures are defined as a structure that's only up for about 6 months. Then you got to take it down. You see these temporary buildings around here for like construction and stuff. Single family residences in architectural, one family dwelling zones with less than 1,200 square feet of building are exempt from the envelope and the AC requirements. So smaller type of um,
So,
single
so
family. Go
Tom,
ahead.
excuse me. So if you're building a house currently, but it's less than 1,200 square feet, you don't have to worry about meeting this particular code.
Yes, that's correct.
And I've got a question, if I might, Tom, because if you and Liz and Gina and I have talked about like the topic of doing what we as Guamanians so often do here is you build like an extension maybe, or like in the States they say like a casita. Would you have to retroactively apply these new energy things if in fact like now the square footage of your home expanded?
We had actually addressed that. So alterations less than 400 square feet in area do not need to comply.
Okay. So they measure it by the extension itself, not the total. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Right. Okay.
So about 20 by 20 square foot, and then I'll go into other conditions. Lighting requirements are residential structures are exempt from that. So incandescent lights burn hot, right, and they use a lot of energy. There's been a transition to LEDs, and that was also from fluorescents also, which actually burn a lot of energy, from my understanding. So. That's pretty much a given here on Guam. Now, what is impacted? 1 second here. Let me get my notes together. Okay, what is impacted are new buildings, additions and alterations, renovations, or repairs to existing buildings with changes in occupancy, roof replacements, new or replacements of air conditioning, water heaters, lighting equipment in existing buildings. So again, this is, it's a broad scope, but if it has to go through the building department for any sort of permits, then you have to comply with the requirements of the new code. So let's see now. Okay, additions, alterations, renovations, repair of existing buildings that require permits, again, have to comply with the code. Unaltered portions of existing buildings, systems don't have to be upgraded. So if you add a significant portion to an existing building, you have to make that new addition compliant with the energy code. The existing portions of the building don't need to be upgraded.
Which is kind of the use case that I was just inquiring about a few. Okay, Liz, could I ask you, like, by and large, how much additional cost does this impose to projects that Tom was just saying that are actually affected?
I think the lighting, if they had to put in LED lighting, energy efficient air cons, Tom, right? And actually, it didn't. From what Tom explained to our team, it was just stuff that you're going to do anyway when you actually build. So you just have to comply with their guidelines. Whenever there's a change, we're always cautious. What does that mean in dollars and cents? But from what Tom was explaining, it didn't actually impact too much unless you're building a new building. And whenever you build new buildings, you do have to comply with certain guidelines.
So Tom, am I understanding this correct? Like what Gina was just, or Liz was just saying, so if I'm in the process of securing a loan to get a commercial property or the home of my dreams, it's not going to dramatically say it's raising it automatically $150,000. However, the spec of the building code itself might require like my builders to have to like maybe adjust their building techniques a little bit, right?
Yes. They'll have to be a bit smarter about your building envelope, for example, sealing everything so that you don't lose energy. Putting good roof coatings on top of it, insulated windows, tinting, for example, and then air conditions with higher SEER ratings. The advantage of like air conditioning with higher SEER ratings, you get rebates back from the government. Plus, they're more energy efficient, and so they use less energy. So you can, if for example you have an air conditioner that didn't have a high SEER rating, then you put one in with a higher SEER rating. Compare the two power bills, you're going to see a significant reduction in energy costs, your GPA bill. I've heard stories about 40 to 50% of that energy consumption just from the change of the air conditioning. Okay.
The thing I wanted to point out, Jace, when Tom came to do, the talk in our office, what we noticed after he explained what this is about, we've noticed, he mentioned that the law went into effect 2 years ago, but I guess the government gave the community 2 years, and the government agencies, the engineers, the people who draw the plans, I guess it was meant that they would have 2 years to get everything up to speed, right, Tom? Is kind of how it seemed. But,
Yeah.
but what I noticed too is the vendors have had 2 years. So you can't buy an AC now if it's not energy efficient, if it doesn't have the, I think 13 is the minimum, but most average SEER rating, so that's the energy efficiency ratio, I think. Most of them now are averaging 16 to 21. I've not seen any vendor, AC vendor, selling anything below that. So yeah, I think it gave the market 2 years to bring in the right products is what I thought had happened, and it seems like it.
Yeah. So several stakeholders were involved in the formation and implementation of the Guam Tropical Energy Code. So you had retailers, you had contractors, you had mechanical engineers, you had architects, you even had realtors involved, and of course the government was involved in it. The Guam Energy Office was also involved in it. So yeah, I mean it's all in all, it's a good thing. There's always additional costs if you want to protect your building. I mean, we have to seal the building envelope because we have typhoons out here. So we do a pretty good job about that. As far as the air conditionings, I think the government programs are great because it gives a rebate. And the higher the SEER rating, the more of a rebate you get back. We all know that our roofs too, we put a coating on it, and the higher and better quality coating where you have reflective materials on there, as opposed to putting in insulation for like a residential unit. I mean, it's always good because concrete buildings are built out of concrete. Concrete does crack. It'll protect your intrusion of water and corrosion of your building, and it keeps it cool. For other buildings, I mean, it's typically a given that they're gonna, for commercial space, for example, they're gonna put insulation in the building. It's got to be comfortable. It's got to be energy efficient. The more energy efficient it is, I think the better customers you're going to get. And it just makes common sense to do these things. And you can always go up in price if you want. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say we got to wrap up, but go ahead, Liz.
No, I like the idea that it's supposed to be energy efficient, but many of us have high SEER rated. I mean, we have high SEER rated air conditioners, but even with that, my power doubled. And the power here now has really gone up. So hopefully, it's a collaboration of effort between the government to bring our power costs down, because all Gina and I hear from our clients is the doubling of the power bill. I mean, this is great that it's supposed to help, but right now we are at high power costs right now, high power bills. So it's unfortunate, but many people had to move out of their rental properties to move back home because they couldn't afford the power. So anyway, Tom, I'm just hoping that somewhere down the road, there'll be additional assistance to balance things out for the community.
Right. And I think our government is doing that. Several things out of our control in terms of fuel costs and everything, and globally what's going on. But we try to do what we can locally to improve the quality of life for all residences on Guam and everyone doing business.
All right. And, so we hope both metaphorically and structurally, I guess, to maybe make a joke that people in Tom's line of work would do is everybody just stay cool. All right.
Yeah. Basically, that's it. So we talk about the building envelope, lighting, air conditioning, water heating, all those energy consumption devices. They're all addressed in the code, and you can get copies of it. You can just contact the Guam Energy Office, and they should direct you in the right place to get the right information. So all of the engineers out there designing really need to comply, sharpen their pencils, do the best job they can, and do the right thing for the residences.
There you go. Well, Tom Camacho, thank you so much for your insight once again, and for shedding light on this very, very worthwhile stuff. Ladies, thank you as always.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.